Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Plunge Talks podcast. My name is Michelle. I'm your host, and I'm here with my amazing friend, Amanda.
Hello.
Amanda teaches yoga here at the space every Thursday. She's incredible. And I don't know, how do you want to introduce yourself to the world?
I'm Amanda. And yeah, I teach yoga. That's basically my passion. It's something that I've been doing now for a little over 11 years, practicing yoga, and I just started teaching about 5 years ago. And it's funny because I thought you were going to ask me a certain question because you ask the same thing every podcast, so I had it prepared.
Excuse me, let me rewind. How would you like the world to know you?
Okay, there you go. So that question would normally really stress me out, but
Yes.
I had time to think about it.
Well, and we were supposed to record this last week, but there was construction going on in here, so we couldn't.
Yeah.
So you've had 2 weeks now
Exactly.
to prepare. So it better be good.
Exactly. Well, it's the reason that I teach yoga, and I want the world to know me as somebody who is constantly on a mission to find themselves and figure out more behind who they are. Because I feel like when you ask that question, who am I, not just once, but when you continue to ask that question,
Yes.
you open up Pandora's box.
Yes.
And you start to unearth who you are beyond the stories, the labels, the identities, and when you're connected with that, you feel free. And not only that, but when people see you in that, they feel like they have permission to do the same.
Yes.
And that's the whole basis behind why I teach yoga.
Yes.
Yeah, and why I've been practicing for so long.
And that's amazing. And I feel like, we've talked about our stories, kind of figuring out, we've talked about the path to get to where we are now.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
both you and I originated in a corporate life. I was working in financial technology sales for 8 years. I did customer service, I did events, I did everything. And sales and support and stuff. And you also lived a corporate life. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, so I was on and off the corporate roller coaster for quite a while, for about 5 years. The first time that I can remember making the big switch, I was in behavior analysis. I was working with kids with autism, which was really rewarding. And my best friend and I, on a whim, decided to move out to Oregon. So I went out there. I was in grad school online. I was going to be a behavior analyst, and I was just going that traditional route. And we were in our living room, and this was about 6 years ago now, but at this time, Oregon had legalized marijuana recreationally.
Nice, nice.
So I remember being in the living room, and my boss calls me, my soon-to-be boss, and she's like, yeah, everything's all set, Amanda, you'll start in 2 weeks. You just have to come in and take your drug test. And I was like, drug test? She's like, yeah, your marijuana drug test. And I'm like,
Ruh-roh.
okay. So obviously I could have, stopped smoking right there. We were like kids in a candy shop, by the way. We were eating all the eats, drinking all the drinks that are,
Well, especially if you're early 20s.
Exactly.
Your system can handle
So we
all
were
of
having
that.
fun.
Yeah.
So really it would have been an easy fix. I could have just stopped and I could have put off that drug test and then started right back up and nothing would have been a problem, it would have been okay. But at that moment, I think I was, faced with the question, if it's not a hell yes, or it's a hell no, right?
Yes.
So in that moment, I realized, I don't want to do this. I don't want to jump through these hoops. This is absolutely a hell no.
Right.
So I had a crisis. I had what I would imagine to be a manic episode in the living room, and I'm pacing around the living room, and my best friend who came out there with me, she's a really great sounding board for me. And we got to the root of it, and I'm like, I don't even want to do this. I want to teach yoga. So I ended up finding a really great teacher program out there, and that was kind of the first moment where I realized, I don't even want to do this. It just felt like the path that was most aligned with how I could find freedom, financial freedom, and being a real adult. And I didn't realize that there were any other options. So yeah.
Well, and I think that's the hardest part too, is when you go to school, if you're following the route that society tends to force us into, it's you go to college, you get a degree, then you go work a job in whatever your degree is in, and then if you go for a master's or a higher education, then you get the degree in that, and then you keep going, and it's this very, very linear path.
Yeah.
And I too didn't know there were other options. I never thought that owning a business was a thing that I could do. I just remember when I was I was pre-med in college. I went to Rutgers, I was pre-med, and then final semester senior year when I failed organic chemistry. Again, I got the lowest grade in the class. I remember the professor like announcing the range for the test, and he's like, someone got a 7, and I was like, wow, that sucks for
Sucks
that
to be
person.
you, bro.
Sucks to be you. That was me, and I wish I had so much shame that I like shredded that test, whatever. I wish I kept it, like, cause that's something that I would go in a frame, like lowest score on
like,
the
this is
organic
definitely
chemistry
a hell no
test.
for me.
Definitely a hell no, but that's all I wanted. That's all I thought about. I was working in an ER at the time. I'd been an EMT for several years, so the medical field was everything.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was like, shit, there's no way. And so then I ended up finishing my bachelor's degrees in criminal justice because I just kind of had the credits and it was fun. And my boyfriend at the time was a cop, and I was like, this is great. And then I got a job in finance. And like, okay, it worked out. I wanted to live in New York, and you know, I had a friend or connection that helped me get the job. I got it because I'm talented, but also because I got help. But again, I didn't know there were other options. I didn't know there was other things I could do. I knew like with a degree in criminal justice, I'm like, well, maybe I'll go FBI or CIA or whatever. But I'm like, I don't want to wear a uniform.
Yeah.
You know, the most uniform I could do is scrubs, which I loved. I got really nice ones. But it never occurred to me that life could look different. And it wasn't until I had now worked my career at Bloomberg for 8 years and was absolutely falling apart. I mean, every day I would sit on the edge of my bed and I would cry before I put on my mascara because it was just hell. Working 5 days a week, 9 to 5, or we did 8 to 5, and it always ended up being longer. Like having, you know, an hour for lunch, but the hour wasn't really your hour because by the time you got done and you got to leave, it was less. But I was like, how is this life? How is this that people live? You get X amount of vacation days a year.
Yeah.
X amount of sick days, and you live for those. I'm like, but how is this okay? Like, how is this something that us as humans are fine with? This is the dream.
Yeah.
And so many people were like, oh my God, you work for Bloomberg. That's amazing, whatever. I was like, sure, no.
Sounds good on paper,
miserable.
but does it feel good?
Miserable.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was going through my breakdown, absolute just disaster breakdown, I had a teacher that was like, that she worked with numerology, and she was like, you're a life path number 8, and you are my business owner. You are my CEO, you are the leader, you are this, you are that. I felt like I was none of those things. I felt like I was just a pawn in a game, just trying to get by. I felt I had no creativity. I felt leadership maybe, but the rest, I was like, absolutely fucking not. And then when I left that and I moved down here and I started grad school, I was like, well, maybe being a therapist, I mean, I love working with people, I love talking to people, I love hearing their stories and all that stuff, but I was like, maybe being a therapist will give me that kind of freedom. I can do a private practice, I can do my own thing, but then when I was doing my hours, it ended up just being the same thing as a corporate structure, same bullshit, same requirements, same limitations.
Yeah.
It felt the opposite of free, the opposite of how I could express myself and work my best. And the fact that, you know, I wanted to, like, for example, do breathwork sessions with my groups, just Wim Hof or something, but just kind of instead of a meditation. And I was always kind of looking over my shoulder to be like, yeah, am I going to get in trouble for this?
Right.
And to be in a world where I'm giving my heart and soul to something and I'm terrified of being in trouble for it. Makes no sense.
Yeah, and they don't really give us a lot of option when we first get out of high school because it's like, okay, these are the options.
Yes.
And now you have to just blindly follow it.
Yes.
You know, you don't get to experience it, you don't get to try it out, and you're 17, 18 years old a lot of the time.
Yes.
And you just have to go with, and then a lot of people end up changing their major a lot. I know that I did because I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do.
Right.
But yeah, it sounds like we had a similar journey in that we kind of, you know, left and then went back, and we just kind of find ourselves back on the corporate roller coaster.
Yes.
But very similar situation with me. So I finally left that one job.
Yeah.
I decided to drop out of grad school.
Okay.
I moved back down to Florida. I taught yoga a little bit out there, and I worked at Applebee's because I didn't have a car, and it was like right across from my apartment.
Nice, nice.
But I moved home, and I found this awesome company called Stretch Zone, and it's practitioner-assisted stretching where you literally stretch people.
Yes.
I'm like, hey, this aligns with kind of what I want to do, and I'll do this part-time, and then I'll become a yoga teacher down here and build my yoga business. And right away, I got an offer to be, in the corporate training department, which was teaching. I would go around and teach, and I also would be able to travel. And as a Sag North node, it was on paper, it sounded amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a really young company, and I kind of got in on the ground floor, so it was essentially a company I could go with till the end of my working days.
Yeah.
And it was great, but something about it just didn't feel right, and a lot of my life actually reflected that because the people I was hanging out with, the people I was dating, on paper sounded really good, but it didn't really set my soul on fire.
Right.
So yeah, eventually I had, like the Saturn return experience, which was brought on by a relationship. And yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and I just realized, like, much like the relationship that I was in, my life was a lot of smoke and mirrors. Like, it looked good on paper. When I said it out loud, it sounded good.
Right.
When I was trying to convince myself that it was good, it even sounded good.
Yes.
But I couldn't work 40, sometimes more than that, hours a week and then live the lifestyle that I wanted. The two cannot coexist.
Does
you can't
not exist.
dedicate your time 40 hours to something and then also build the lifestyle that you want.
Yeah.
So then I had to quit again and go on this whole journey again of trying to make my own way, and it hasn't been easy. I'm sure you can attest to this. It's not like, oh, I'm following my path and I'm following my heart and now it's all rainbows and butterflies. It's not easy.
It's ugly as hell.
It's very ugly, and you see lots of parts of yourself that you're not necessarily proud of. You see your weaknesses, but you also see your strengths, which is amazing. But you have to be your own boss, which is really not easy to do.
It's really hard.
It's really hard.
Well, and even before any of that happens, it's that once you make your decision to do something else, there's that wave of fear, there's that wave of anxiety, that wave of I am not enough, I am not worthy, I'm gonna fuck this up. You double guess, you question yourself the whole time. And then when you finally present that idea to the people in your life, your parents, your significant other, your friends, depending on the world that they live in, you get to be met with a whole lot of more resistance.
Yeah.
I know that was big in my own story
Yeah.
because I didn't even know what it looked like. And I still don't know what the end of my path looks like. I still have no idea. I know what 2 feet in front of me looks like, and that we're sitting in it. But I don't know what the big picture is. And I'm at this point, I'm embracing that.
Yeah.
But especially when that shift first started to happen, where I was like, I need to quit my job and I need to do something new. All the internal insanity, right, shows up, and then presented to my friends, my coworkers, my family, hey, I'm quitting this job and I think I'm gonna start grad school to do this. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why don't you just get another role in the company? Maybe go to marketing or go to product management or, work at another firm. I could have gotten a desk job as an analyst at a hedge fund and made a shit ton of money.
I've been so bored.
And I would have hated my life. I'm like, I already hate this shit. Why would I go in more? And like, yes, I would love to make more money, but it's blood money.
Yeah.
If I'm already crying, I'm not going to survive much longer.
Yeah.
And I think we forget how intense the internal experience is and the resistance from everyone else.
And that's just people projecting their fears
Yes.
onto you. I think it's out of love, especially if it's coming from your family and your friends. It's because they want you to be safe, they want you to be happy, and they think that that's the only way.
Yes.
And we're proof that it's not.
Yes.
And through all the struggle, we keep pushing forth, and I feel like there's a lot of those opportunities that come up that seem like they might be the way out, like another kind of corporate position.
Yes.
And when you find yourself back in that position, you're like, wait a second,
Right.
this is a little bit better and a little bit more aligned, but it's still not exactly what I want. But it can be really scary.
It's terrifying. And I do feel like I'm laughing because every transition that I've made, like when I was trying to leave Bloomberg, another opportunity came up to basically do the same thing at a different company.
Yeah.
And I actually got hired. Like I got hired, I signed the paperwork, I was ready to start, and it was a remote job. So this was during COVID. So I was like, okay, great, whatever. And then they were like, okay, we'll send you a document on Monday with your start date, whatever. Never showed up. 2-3 weeks went by, never showed up. And at the time I was like, I was so scared to make the change and actually quit my job and actually like step my first foot into this new life that I was creating, that I just felt so tortured by this. And I know, of course, I feel like this is the universe protecting me, because I would have started this job and I would have just fallen in. I would have had the same clients. Like I literally was going to be managing the same accounts that I was managing at Bloomberg, just with their competitors. Yeah, which, I mean, it would have been great. And actually, this company actually had a product that my existing clients would have used better. I remember that. I was like, oh, this is going to be cake. I got all their cell phone numbers, or besties, it's no problem. But again, who knows how long I would have spent in that role. My life would look completely different.
Yeah, and
I might still be in New York City, miserable.
Absolutely. Yeah, and once that newness of the new job wears off and you're just stuck in the routine, you're like, what? Why did I do this again?
Fuck.
But it's all part of the journey.
Jesus Christ, this journey, man, this journey. Before we started filming, I was crying, and I think I've been crying like all morning. Why? I don't know. We tried to figure this out. We tried to figure it out. It's interesting I hear a lot of people say, regardless of the context, choose your heart. And yes, it's easy to kind of live that corporate life. Okay, I'm gonna get a degree in marketing, and then I'm gonna go work for a marketing firm, and then I'm gonna work the 9 to 5, and I'm gonna get health insurance and benefits and a 401k.
The path is laid out.
The path is laid out. It's so clear, and okay, you can retire with that company, and you're vested in your 401k and all that stuff. But when it's not your passion, and when you're spending 40, 50, 60, sometimes 80 hours a week doing something that is not from your heart, is not in service to others, is not where you want to be, that is hard. That is soul-sucking.
And some people love it. I had friends that loved climbing the corporate ladder. It was like a game to them. They loved being at work. They loved doing it. And that's great for you. But for me, that was just not the way. That was not the way.
I feel like that's my sister-in-law. Like, she's in sales. She's a shark. She like lives
she
for
loves
closing
it, and that's
deals.
great.
She loves it. And I remember when I was also in sales, and we would talk about work and stuff. I'm like, how do I get that? Like, how do I feel like that when it comes to work? Because it never existed for me. But it's amazing that there are people out there that love that, live for that, right? Not everyone can be on the same journey.
Yeah, exactly. We need everybody in every position to make the world go round.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so if that's something that fuels you, that's great. But also if it's something that's not, like, I feel like I want the message of this conversation to be like, what is it that you want? You want, not your family, not your expectations, your dreams as like a 7-year-old, like nothing. What is it that you want? Right? What does your perfect life look like? And acknowledging that nothing will ever be perfect, and that every step of the way it's hard. Like I was saying, like I'm sitting in my dream. I own an amazing business that is attracting the most incredible humans, and I get to bring my friends in, and I get to make new friends, and it's, people's lives are changing because of the breath work, because of the cold plunging, and I get to literally see it every day.
And this morning, you were crying.
I've been crying all morning, like rageful crying. Why? I don't know. Could be many things. But that's all part of it, right?
Yeah.
And I think there was a podcast that I was listeing to.
Was it Deja Blue?
It was either Deja Blue or Aubrey Marcus. Amazing podcasts. But it was someone who is in like the spiritual space, who's a business owner, who does all these things. And I remember her talking about like reaching these goals, reaching these moments that like we look up and we're like, oh my God, that's where I want to be. And then you get there and it's still fucking hard.
Yeah, and I think that's that's challenging, because when you are following your dream, you expect to be happy and joyful all the time.
Right.
But actually, a lot of time you're in the pits because you're paving a path out of nothing. And I feel like, I love our generation. I feel like I could say this because I'm part of the generation, but our generation is a generation of pipe dreams a lot of the time. Like, we're innovators, we have all of these things that we want to do that sound amazing on paper. But when you start to go through the actual process, it gets hard. And a lot of times you end up going the more comfortable route. And I commend you because you didn't, you stayed with it. And although you were having a lot of challenging experiences, look at what you created.
Yes.
Right? And this is your dream, and you're at the very beginning of the creation process, so it's just gonna get easier and easier, I feel like, as you continue.
I hope so. Let's go with that. And I also think, like, yes, our generation is full of pipe dreams, right? I mean, we grew up like in the 90s. I was thinking about this the other day. Like, the 90s was like the time of the Rainforest Cafe.
Yes, I love the Rainforest
like
Cafe.
all these different, like, I remember going into New York City as a kid, and there was this restaurant called Mars 2112. And you, in order to get into the restaurant, it was like a 3-hour wait. You couldn't make a reservation. Oh my God, this is the coolest. This was in New York. I think this was right on like Avenue of the Americas. Yeah, no, gotta come to New York. But it was like, I just remember, like, it was it was a 3-hour wait to get in. And once you got inside the restaurant, you went into this like spaceship that like played this like movie, like you were taking off from Earth and going to Mars, and it would move around. It was like Disneyland. And then you get in and everyone's in costume and it's huge. I'm like, it might not have been huge. I don't know. It was like 6. But it was, you know, everything was Mars themed, aliens, all the dishes were like alien themed. And then there was another restaurant called Jekyll and Hyde's, where it was like you rode this like rickety elevator to get in. It was another like 3-hour wait, but it was like, I feel like the 90s was like the whole world was Disneyland. The whole world was Disneyland. And which is great, but I feel like, okay, we have this expectation, or, you know, what did that do to us and our expectations of what the world could be, right? Like, I love the world being Disneyland. I loved going into the themed restaurants, and everything was just like great and fun. And this was also when everybody was making money before the .com bubble, and everything was great. And I feel like the message of like, you could be anything.
It's
daunting.
Yeah.
And you gotta work hard. Like, it's gonna be hard.
Yep.
And then it's like, I don't know, I'm like trying to figure out like where the like hustle culture came in too. And I feel like hustle culture has been around forever, but I feel like that's also part of it. You know, it's like, well, you really just gotta hustle, and you just gotta grind, and you gotta make money, and which is easy to do in the corporate world. You know?
And it's easy when someone lays out the plan for you, and you're able to follow that, and you know, at the end of this route, I have security, which is just an illusion anyway. It's not actually, we can't ever be secure in anything. Anything can happen at any moment. But I feel like our generation is the first generation that's breaking away from that mold and going to do things on our own. And it's never been easier with the internet, but it's also never been so challenging because everyone's trying to do that. So it makes it that much harder. And
and everyone's also putting up this like social media sheen of like,
facade.
I'm a successful business owner, and this is what I do, and look at my life and whatever. And so if you're expecting everyone else is having it easy, if it looks easy for everyone else and it's not easy for you, then you're like, why am I even doing this?
Exactly.
I should just be done.
I'm just gonna try something else.
Right.
Yeah.
I hate social media.
I know. I hate it. It's like a necessary evil.
Yes.
Because I feel like it's very connecting.
Yes.
And you can do things like start a business and market it for free on social media, which
That's
is
what
beautiful.
all of our marketing has been on
but it's
Instagram.
a highlight reel at the end of the day. And all of us are guilty of it. We're not going to put ourselves crying. Well, some of us do, and that's
Some
great.
people do, and I'm like,
are you just looking for attention?
Right.
But it's hard to be real in a world of social media, like on social media, especially when you're trying to sell a product or promote your business. You want it to look amazing.
Yeah, you want it to look
and you
polished.
Want to show up as your best self.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when I was in grad school to be a therapist and working as a therapist and starting to think about like a private practice and what that would look like. And I'm like, oh God, like I'm either gonna have to make my social media private, because I'm not taking down the cute pictures of me. Like I got my booty out in some, it's just some, it's been a while, but I'm like, I'm proud of myself in those pictures. And then I'm like, am I gonna have to make a whole nother Instagram? And some of my friends who are therapists have their Instagrams, which are great, but it's also like
you can
the
tell they're holding
motivational
back.
quote shit, and like, you're showing up and you're like, hair is done and your makeup's done, and you're like, let's talk about this today. Let's talk about anxiety. And like, great, love you, good for you. I'm not calling anyone out specifically. This is just general, but that's not my vibe, man. And then if I'm going to be a therapist and a licensed therapist, like there is some polish that's required, and some level of like inauthenticity that has to happen because of it.
Yeah, well, I feel like we have to wear masks for all the different roles that we're in. I'm not going to act the same way to my sister as I do to my fiance, or to my students as I do to like my dog Diego. We show up with these different masks on, but I think at the end of the day, we all just want to be authentically us, even though when we have to show up just slightly different or more professional. But I feel like when you are working for somebody else or under a company, you have to show up in the real world as a representation of that in some way. So there is a little bit of holding back, which is really challenging, especially for our generation. Especially now that everything is on social media. It's really hard because you want to be yourself, but at the end of the day, you have to scale it back a little bit.
You got to mute that. And like, I remember too, training to be a therapist, they kept talking about like the therapist identity. So how do you want your therapist identity to show up? And like you were saying,
I love your accent when you said that. That's exactly how I imagine it.
Right? Like
the therapist identity.
Oh my God, I was such a bad student. But I feel like that's true for, like you were saying, all facets of our life. We wear different hats, we wear different masks, we have different versions of us. And I remember when I first started doing like actual therapy and like group therapy, and I was like trying to be like a therapist or whatever, and I hated it so much, and I was just like, this cannot be my life. And it felt hard. It felt like that 90 minutes of group, I felt like 4 hours, and it was horrifying.
It was not a hell yes.
It was not a hell yes. I would have panic attacks. And then at one point I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm just gonna show up as Michelle. Let's see what happens. Within like reason, right? Like I'm still being a therapist, I'm still very aware of my clients and their needs and all this stuff and everything that I've been trained for. But I'm dropping F-bombs. I'm like jokingly threatening to throw my shoe at people, which, like I wasn't gonna do it. But like the more I found that the more me that I was, the more my people responded to it.
Absolutely.
And that's been something like with this place, I've been trying my best too to like show up as me, which can be a little challenging.
Yeah, you
especially
do a great job at it.
Like demon day today. Today was challenging. If you saw me today though, I held it together pretty well, I think. But like, it's hard too because not every day is the same.
Yeah.
We're not going to show up the same way every day.
And you can still show up as Michelle, who is at the space, at her business, facilitating for people, but also Michelle is in there and she's a little bit angry. And maybe she's not going to act the same way that she normally would if she's feeling joyful.
Right. And I think that also ties into everybody kind of learning that your experience is your experience. And the way that somebody interacts with you is a reflection of their own experience, not you.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Oh, I know, isn't it?
Cringe. Like, no, it's all you. It's not me. It's not me.
Those are what we were talking about earlier with like reflection fatigue. You know, some days you just gotta be mad.
I just want to be upset. And I just want to blame you for the fact that I'm upset. And I just want to be okay with that, even though we know that's not true. It's nice to feel the feels sometimes, and I think it's really important.
Yes. And that's so important. There's some days where you gotta be like, fuck that bitch. And then there's some days where you're gonna be like, okay, I understand where this person is coming from. To show up with empathy, to show up with understanding.
Yeah, maybe give it an hour. Let yourself be pissed off for an
Yes,
hour.
let yourself just
and then,
rage
exactly.
for an
Then let me
hour.
reflect and say, you know what, this person is going through X, Y, and Z, and this is why they're showing up in that way. It has nothing to do with me. But it is nice to have that little bit of space to just be in the field.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wish that boys understood that more.
Yeah.
Not all problems need fixing, men.
Yes.
Dear men.
It's all out of love. It's all out of love.
It's all
but
out of love.
Yeah, we just want to be in our feels sometimes.
Right. Let us feel.
Yeah.
Please don't try to fix it. I'll let you know when I need help fixing it.
There we go. We'll ask for help.
We'll
when
ask
we need
for
it.
help.
Yeah.
But please stop trying to fix my shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me rage. It's so funny. It's so
Yeah.
funny the way that to witness people and how they react to different, whether it's rage or whether it's joy or you know.
Yeah, and I feel like we learn a lot about ourselves in those moments where someone triggers us in the way that we show up.
Yeah.
And the way we want to show up versus the way we actually do show up. It's very telling. But
It's
that's
just
why
like
I
it
love
never
the space.
Yes.
Not because of that. Like you don't come in here and throw stuff. But I think it's beautiful that this is a container where people can come in and do the breath work.
Yes.
And there's a lot that can be revealed to you through that breath work. And
Yes.
you've said that it's primarily men that show up and do the breath
Yes.
work. And these grown men are sitting here breathing and crying and letting out all of this stuff. And this is just kind of unearthing who you are. You're taking back the layers. And
Yes.
It's amazing to have not only a space but a community where you're supported in that and we're being encouraged to do that.
Well, that's something that is so cool and that I'm so proud of is that the majority of our customers that come in for breathwork are men. And I have never been in a space or a container or a session or a practice that is more on the spiritual side. Like breathwork is a meditation, it's considered spiritual. I've never, ever, not once been in a space that has been primarily men. Usually it's all women and like 2 or 3 men, and at least one of those was brought by his girlfriend.
Right, yoga's
know?
like that too.
Yes.
It's primarily women, and then some of the men start to come and they like it and they show back up, but usually a woman brings
Right,
them.
which is beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Like we love, like I feel like women are really ready to do the work and ready to show up for themselves and to be able for me to hold space for men going through their whatever it is, their journey that they're going through. And one thing that I say before I lead breath work is you get to be messy here.
Yeah.
Like all versions of you are welcome here. And I mean that because I also mean that for myself, that if I'm a raging bitch, I can be raging bitch, it's fine.
Yeah.
But like also for y'all, like all versions of you are welcome here. This isn't a practice that has to be poised, that has to be put together, that has to be done right. For me, there's no right way to do breath work.
Right.
The way that you're doing it, that you need it, as long as you're honoring yourself, is the right way.
Yeah, I love that.
And I had so much fun this past week in one of my breathwork sessions. It was just 2 guys, so it was a very small group. And one of them was just like struggling to sit still, and he was like, there was a lot of energy that was moving through him. And then we just started yelling. And it was like, breathe,
It was
yell,
just the 2 of you?
breathe, yeah. Well, it was me, and there were 2 guys doing the breath work.
Okay.
One like had a lot of energy to release.
Okay,
The
I
other
love
was like
that.
in
I
his
love
journey.
that.
And part of me was like, oh God, is this gonna disturb the other guy? But I'm like, you know what? I need to fucking yell too. And
We're
we
yelling.
screamed. It was breathe, scream for like 3 whole minutes.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it felt so good.
well, that's purging. Just
That's
like releasing the
purging.
breath and
That's what
releasing
I'm
the tears and the
saying.
yelling.
Like this is what he needed.
Yeah.
And like it felt so like to me as the facilitator, as a space holder, there was nothing else that needed to be done except for to yell. To yell and to move and all that stuff. And it's so cool to see that. And like I want you to feel comfortable, so I'm not gonna let you yell alone. I
Yeah.
also needed
I'll
it
yell
myself.
with you,
But I'm not
happily.
yelling with you.
Yeah.
But it was just so cool to see that and to be a part of it and to witness that. And then when we do our deeper breathwork journeys, like we had a guy last weekend who was actually purging,
Like
which is not the
vomiting?
first time vomiting. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's not the first time that's happened too.
In the bathroom?
So no, I brought out a bucket.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
I'm
were ready.
I'm well versed in the purging.
Yeah.
But again, you can purge. You can. I've had some people in here that are making noises like they're having an orgasm. Like, great, awesome. You can cry, lots of tears. I mean, you can laugh. We've had laughter. Like any version of you gets to be expressed here.
That's amazing. And it's
Yeah.
so much needed because a lot of these people do have corporate jobs.
Yes.
And if you want to be in a corporate job, this is not an attack on corporate
Right,
life
right. We're
at
not
all.
attacking corporate
We are
jobs,
just not
a
the
little
corporate
bit,
girls.
A little bit, yeah.
But some people do love it, and that's their reality.
Yes.
But it's nice to have a space where you can show up as who you are.
Yes.
Before you go put on that suit and tie and
Yes.
show up as your corporate version of you.
Right.
You know, and I see people coming in here at 6 a.m. plunging, getting ready for their day, and just getting that focus before they
Yes.
go out, and it's so nice to have that,
Yes.
and people encouraging other people to do it too.
Yes.
And saying just show up as who you are.
Show up as who you are,
Yeah,
and like,
nothing more,
and
nothing
that's
less.
another cool thing about like breath work and cold plunging is like, you can try to be like, especially the cold plunge,
Mm-hmm.
you could try to be this like tough, like, yeah, I got this, like I'm cool, but more often than not, boys.
It's mostly boys.
Boys.
And me, because I was a baby at first. I'm like, I'm this Zen
But at
yogi.
least
I'm
you
gonna
figured
show
out-
up and just be like, so, no.
I love that.
I'm still not.
I
I'm
love
still
that.
not. I'm in there like tapping the sides of the tub and like looking
Yeah.
around and looking at my phone, trying to see the time.
Right,
and-
like if I stare at my phone longer, will the time speed up?
Usually the answer is no.
The
I've
exact
studied
opposite
this.
happens.
I've studied this.
The
Yeah.
exact opposite happens.
Yeah.
But again, it's like the great equalizer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you
can be
learn
who
about
you
yourself
think you
there.
are. You learn a lot about yourself.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And then it's fun too because I notice patterns.
Mm.
You know, as a therapist, right? That's my training, and as a lifetime people watcher, that's my favorite pastime, my favorite thing ever. Is like I've noticed patterns of people and
Oh, I'm sure
the
you've noticed
ones
some of
who
mine.
react. I try to not analyze my friends.
Okay, fair enough.
Now that I don't have to write papers
Yeah.
about case studies and clients, I used to always write case studies about my friends, which was fun. But I try to not do it now, just so that I don't want to like diagnose
keep
my
them
friends
as your
anymore. I want to
friends,
just keep
like,
them as my
yeah.
friends. We'll just keep that separate. But I have noticed some things like depending on how people react to like there's the people who have a hard time, and then there's the people who I'm like, oh, you're really going through something in your life, and it's really clear
Yeah.
the difference. And that's something that I feel honored to have this space where if I'm coaching someone through a cold plunge and they are in it and
Yeah.
I'm like, uh-oh, this isn't for you. This
Yep,
is
yep,
some
yep, yep.
deep-seated trauma that's coming up. Like, I can at least, like, I'm not going to peel back the layers because I don't
Right,
have time, but I'm
right.
going to at least do what I can to support them.
Yeah, and
you
I
know?
think your journey at studying therapy and doing the grad school thing has probably prepared you a lot for this work. I
You
can
know
imagine.
what? There's a lot of things in my
not
bag.
in
I've
vain.
done a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah,
And it's all kind of coming together right now, which is really cool. And in December, Saturn stops squaring my sun. Thank God. If you know anything about astrology, just nightmare. And so I feel like I am feeling this like finally like ending of this cycle and like where I've just been all over the place for the last fucking 6 years, forever. I feel like things are really coming together, which is really cool.
Yeah, it is. Look at what you have here.
Yeah, well, I want to know more because you're about to head to Greece
Yes.
on your retreat. So I want to know more about your your journey now as yoga teacher, flow and let go queen, and like
Yeah.
where you want that to go.
That's a great question. I've always been somebody who just kind of let things unfold, which has been a nightmare for my family, I'm sure. Like I don't have really good planning skills, and I just want to be open to whoever I'm going to become tomorrow. So I'm very big on being true to who I am now and just letting that naturally expand. But yeah, so my fiance Mike and I, we have a company called Flow and Let Go. It started as Full Moon Beach Yoga, and it's progressed into like bachelorette yoga is a big thing.
Love that.
Birthday yoga is a big thing, which is really cool that people are doing alternative things.
Yeah, like they're
for
not
these
just like going out and getting
celebrations.
wasted. They're like, let's do something good for our bodies and our minds.
Exactly, exactly.
Love that.
And last year was our first retreat in Greece, and we got engaged out there, and we loved it so much that we're going back this year. So I'm just letting it unfold as it does. I know that I found my passion. It's definitely a hell yes.
Yes.
So I know that I will more than likely continue being a yoga teacher probably for the rest of my life.
Yes.
And how that unfolds as the years go by is, you know, I'm open to however that does. But right now it's working out pretty well.
I love
It's working out pretty well. Yeah, I'm enjoying the journey a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it must be really cool too with your retreats. Like, you know, not only are you going to amazing places, but with the people that you're traveling with, you're really getting to know them.
Absolutely.
And you're really getting to witness their
Yeah,
journey.
yeah, and when you're planning something like this, it is a little bit stressful, especially when you're doing it on
Little
your
bit.
own. Yeah, because you know, you put a deposit down on a house and you're like, okay, let's fill it up, you know, and you know, people say that they're interested, but life happens. It's hard to take a week and a half out of your life and travel across the country and spend the money on that. But
And people are commitment phobes anyway.
absolutely, and I am too, so I get it. Like, no, you know, no harm there. But we've noticed that with the groups that do come together, it's so unbelievably synchronistic.
Yeah.
You know, like we see why this person came and why this person is here, and how even when there's a little bit of like headbutting, which happens every once in a while, it's just so synchronistic. And I think that's just a good metaphor for life, because even all of the challenges that we've been through to get where we are today have made us who we are. And your challenges of today, I know I have quite a few that hopefully I'll come back in like a year or two and be able to speak on as having come out the other side of that.
Yes.
But your challenges of today make who you are tomorrow. And when we were in the pits last year, the year before, it made us who we are today, prepared to take on, you know, what we have. And I think that's true for everybody. And I also think everybody's journey is really, really different.
100%.
It's not going to look like ours. Mine doesn't look like yours.
No.
And I mean, I'm very, very fortunate to have such a supportive family. Like, even if they don't necessarily agree with some of my bonehead decisions, which they have been a little bit irresponsible in the past, but
You
I've
gotta
had to
live
learn
and
the
learn.
lessons I learned.
That's it.
You know I always have that safety net. So if I crash and burn, they're there with a fire extinguisher. If I call my mom and dad, I'm like, I need some money for rent, please, like now. They'll help me. Like, I'll always have someone to support me. And I feel so blessed because of that. And I know that that's not everybody's journey.
No.
So other people's journeys may look way different. You may have to work a serving job and work 40 hours a week and, you know, plan your business on the side. It might be a little bit different, but there are ways around it. And every struggle that you face is there to make you exactly who you need to be in order to make your dreams come true. And we're living the dream as we go. We're going to have challenges even 10 years from now when we've gone through what we're going through now.
We made it.
We'll still have our own challenges then. So,
Well, and I think one thing that helps me through this, and it's something that I kind of, it's part of, it was something that I've integrated since my last ayahuasca ceremony, where, you know, I was really going through it. And I'll talk about all that
I love
another
when you
time,
do that
but I was
laugh.
like,
Because it's always something like really serious. You're like,
it was like awful. It was like an exorcism, but I asked for it, right? And when I was still in my medicine journey and everyone else in the ceremony had gone outside and they were by the fire pit and they were kind of landing from their journeys, and I was still very deep in mine, and I crawled out of the ceremony room because I couldn't walk. I crawled out and I found the shaman and I was like, please help me. Like, I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm like dying, like I don't know what's happening. And her words to me were, you asked for this. Now go back inside and finish it, you know? And I was like, fuck, you're right. Then I got surrender tattooed on my forearm after that, because so now when I'm going through hard things, like today, for example, this week or whatever, I remind myself that I asked for this.
yeah.
I'm constantly reminding myself I asked for this. And with that, it doesn't make it less hard. It doesn't stop like the manic episodes, but it does help me kind of pause for a moment. I asked for this. Okay, that creates space. And now I can just be like, okay, I asked for this. And then if I have the capacity, sometimes I don't have the capacity, and sometimes I just need to go absolutely apeshit. But some days I have the capacity, and when I do, then I'm able to say, okay, I asked for this. What is the lesson? Where can I move towards? Where can I take a step? Is this even in alignment? You know, and that's a question that I've had a lot for myself over the last, God, I guess year since this has been brewing and coming to life is like when it gets hard, I'm like, well, is it in alignment? Am I still feeling that full fuck yes? Am I still feeling in the flow? Is this it? And every time it's absolutely yes.
Yeah.
Every time it's without question, absolutely yes. And that's great. And then I followed it with fuck. And then
keep dragging me through hell. Because this is a hell yes. So let's keep going.
The hell yes.
Let's keep
fuck,
going.
I asked for this, and then move forward from there.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of times we'll go through challenging experiences. I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with this. And you look back and you're like, oh, I went through this because of X, Y, and Z now. But if you can, in the struggle, just stop and see why you're going through it, or maybe even have like a little bit of gratitude, even if it's just like a tiny bit of gratitude. It's so helpful because we know deep down that we're gonna look back and say, oh yeah, I needed that.
Yes.
Even in the moment, it feels like the worst thing that could possibly be happening to you. We do need it to be who we are meant to be.
Yes, 100%. And if you can even in the moment remind yourself, like, in time, I'm going to look back on this moment and I'm going to have gratitude for that. I remember when I was...
I will have gratitude.
I will. I don't have it now.
I'm
not going to have it right now, but I know that it's going to exist in the future. But that, like when I was going through my last breakup and my heart was just shattered into a million pieces.
It's the worst feeling.
And I was like, I literally don't know how I'm going to put one foot in front of the other. I felt so broken. But I kept coming back to, I kept knowing that someday I'm going to be so grateful for this.
Yeah.
Not now, right? And it's going to take time. And it took probably a full year before I felt okay again. But when I struggle, when I have a hard time, I don't need to feel gratitude in the moment. I don't need to feel anything but what I'm actually authentically feeling, and remind myself, I asked for this, and someday I will look back on this and be so grateful. And so far that's been true. I can't think of a single hard thing that I've been through in my life where I'm like, man, I wish that didn't happen.
Same. And I feel like looking back when you're in those moments where you're like, why am I going through this right now? Looking back at your past and where you were a couple of years ago and just saying, oh yeah, it's all gonna work out somehow, some way.
Right.
And
it's
just even,
divine.
you're not gonna like this one again, but
oh God.
but even like when you're feeling the feels, having gratitude that you're a human being that is able to experience these intense emotions.
Well, and that's something like I've learned about myself, specifically in my last ayahuasca ceremony for sure, is that my soul loves to be human.
Yeah.
My soul wants to be human. I think that's why I'm so embodied. That's why I like to do physical things, gym, jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Look at those guns, girl.
Prepare. But my soul loves to be human.
Yeah.
And being human includes all of the emotions, all of the hard things, all of the physical challenges and emotional challenges. That's why we're here. That's why we do this.
Yeah,
we could be in our love dimension.
I mean, that would be boring. Imagine if we were in joy all the time.
Yeah.
We would be so bored. We have to experience the paradox,
Well, have you ever seen some people, and I've had my friends experience this, which is why it makes me laugh, where like I've had friends like book like a week-long all-inclusive vacation on a beach somewhere, and like within the first 24 hours, they're bored. You know? And then you start drinking, and then you start creating your own problems. Like I've witnessed this. I mean, if you're bored, we create your own problems. But it just cracks me up. It's like, okay, if you can spend an entire day on a beach doing nothing, then you're good. That's fine. Whatever. But if you're one of those people, and I think we're all like that, where you maybe an hour, a couple hours, whatever, but eventually you're reaching for your phone, you're
especially
reaching for
with
a
our
book,
technology today. It's not our fault, okay? It's not our fault. We have these like devices right in the palm of our hands,
But it's like I think that that is a good reminder. I think you're right on point where it's like we have to remember we're in this dimension for a reason.
Absolutely.
And we get to.
That's a good one too. We get to experience all of these things. And how lucky are we to be where we're at, wherever we're at, just being alive. We can be grateful for that.
Yes.
As hard as it can be sometimes. But we know that we'll always come out of the other side. Nothing lasts forever. Everything is temporary.
Everything's temporary. And as long as you're living from your heart, it all works out.
Yeah.
All of it.
Absolutely. So be wary when you ask that question, that who am I question.
And
go on that journey.
A long
You're gonna
rabbit hole.
Yeah, but a beautiful one.
It's life-changing.
Yeah.
In all the best ways.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I think on that note, Amanda, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For
Thank
your
you for
time.
having me. Thank you for opening up this beautiful space.
Thank you for bringing your gifts here.
Of course. I really couldn't imagine my life right now without the space and without you.
I love you.
Yeah, I love you too.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank
Mwah.
you.